Hello and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the Algebra 1 concept of dividing polynomials. This is standard A.10C in the great state of Texas, and we are using item number 16 off the 2023 released STAAR test. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and take a moment to pause the video, work this problem out on your own, unpause it, and we will look at our answers together. Alright, so we need a quotient, which means hopefully we're recognizing this term, something that we've learned many years ago in elementary school, right? This means division. So what is the quotient represented by this expression? We've got this big expression here for all the values of w where the expression is defined. Okay, the only reason we're talking about this expression is defined is we can't have any denominator equal 0. So if you were to somehow supply a w in which where the denominator made 0, that would be undefined. So they're just saying make sure the denominator does not equal 0. That's all that means. So how do we divide this? Well, there's many different ways to solve this, right? Because here's our basic polynomial, right? And we know that it's going to be, right, 2w plus 1, and then we're going to multiply by one of these. We're going to get in that. So if we wanted to, we could guess and check, right? We could multiply 2w plus 1 by each of these, and we could see which of those gets us that 8w squared minus 20w minus 12. But that's a lot of brute force, and sometimes you might get a problem. They don't supply you with the other factor. So how do we do it without? Well, it says divide. Let's try dividing. It's going to look a little bit weird, but let's go back to 4th grade when we learned about long division. And we're going to just set up something that looks like long division. Stick with me. This will work. It's not the only way to solve it, but I think it's a nice visual representation. All right, so we know when we're dividing, right, what we're trying to do is we're trying to divide the divisor right here into the dividend when there's multiple terms or multiple digits, right? So if we were to do like 4 into 163, we would first try to divide 4 into the first digit 1. It's not going to work. So then we would divide 4 into the first two digits, 16. That's where we would start. Well, we're going to do the same thing here, okay? So we're going to try to divide this, but our whole divisor is this, 2w plus 1. Okay, so we need space for both of these terms, the 2w and that plus 1. Okay, so we can't necessarily fit it into that 8w squared, but if we fit it into there, we can actually make it work. So let's match this up right here. Okay, let's match up the 2w with the 8w squared. How many times do we think 2w can go into 8w squared? Well, if we do 2 times 4, we would get 8. And if we did w times w, we would get w squared. Okay, so let's try this. 4w. Let's try multiplying 2w plus 1 times 4w, which means we're just going to need to distribute this out. Okay, so that's going to end up being 8w squared plus 4w, all right? 8w squared plus 4w, and then you know when we do long division, after we do that, we subtract the 2, right? So now we're just subtracting these equations. So if I'm subtracting that, that means I need to flip the sign on both of these. That's going to end up being a minus 8w squared, right, which just leaves us with nothing. That's good. This is going to end up being a minus 4w, so now it's going to be minus 24w, because it was a minus 20w minus 4w, and then you bring down that minus 12. Okay, now how many 2w's does it take to get into that minus 24w? Well, hopefully we're saying, hey, we could do a minus 12. Okay, so if we did a minus 12, look what we would get. We would get a minus 24w, right, and then we would get a minus 12. Then we would end up subtracting it, which ends up making that positive, and everything goes away. So it's going to be that 4w minus 12. You could FOIL it to double check, but that's our answer, B.